A historic decision, Article 50, and the start of Brexit. On March 29, 2017, a pivotal moment arrived in British history. Prime Minister Theresa May triggered Article 50 of the Treaty on European Union. This action formally set in motion the UK's withdrawal from the European Union. It was a decision of profound significance, marking the end of a relationship that had spanned decades. Never before had a member state chosen to leave the EU. The UK was charting a new course, one that would have far-reaching consequences for its people and its place in the world. The decision to trigger Article 50 was the culmination of a divisive referendum held the previous year. In June 2016, the British public had voted narrowly in favour of leaving the EU. The referendum campaign had been fierce, exposing deep divisions within British society. The outcome reflected a complex mix of factors: concerns about immigration, a desire for greater national sovereignty, and dissatisfaction with the perceived democratic deficit in the EU. Triggering Article 50 was just the beginning of a long and complex process. The UK and the EU had 2 years to negotiate the terms of their withdrawal and to establish a framework for their future relationship. The task ahead was enormous, with countless details to be hammered out. There were questions about trade, immigration, citizens' rights, and the Irish border, to name just a few. The stakes were high and the outcome uncertain. Hopes and fears, expectations at the dawn of Brexit. As the UK embarked on the path to Brexit, expectations were mixed. The government, led by Theresa May, aimed for a hard Brexit. This meant leaving the EU's single market and customs union. The goal was to regain control over immigration and to strike new trade deals around the world. The government believed that the UK could thrive outside the EU, becoming a global leader in free trade and innovation. However, many economists and businesses expressed concerns about the potential economic fallout from Brexit. They warned of job losses, reduced investment, and higher prices for consumers. The value of the pound sterling plummeted after the referendum, reflecting the uncertainty surrounding the UK's economic future. The Bank of England cut interest rates to historic lows in an effort to cushion the economy from the shock. The EU, for its part, adopted a firm stance in the negotiations. The bloc's chief negotiator, Michel Barnier, insisted that the UK could not cherry-pick the benefits of EU membership. He stressed the importance of preserving the integrity of the single market and the 4 freedoms on which it is based: the free movement of goods, services, capital and people. The EU's position was clear: there would be no special treatment for the UK. Amidst the uncertainty, there were also voices of optimism. Some businesses saw Brexit as an opportunity to forge new partnerships and to expand into new markets. They argued that the UK's flexible economy and skilled workforce would enable it to adapt and thrive in the post-Brexit world. Others believed that leaving the EU would allow the UK to pursue a more independent foreign policy and to strengthen its ties with other countries around the world. The UK leaves the EU, a new chapter begins. On January 31, 2020, the UK officially left the European Union. After more than 4 decades of membership, the UK was no longer part of the bloc. It was a historic moment marking the end of an era. The UK had taken a leap into the unknown, its future uncertain. The withdrawal agreement, painstakingly negotiated between the UK and the EU, set out the terms of the divorce. It covered a range of issues, including citizens' rights, the financial settlement, and the Irish border. The agreement included a transition period, which would last until the end of 2020. During this period, the UK would continue to follow EU rules and regulations, even though it was no longer a member state. This was intended to give businesses and citizens time to adjust to the new relationship. However, the transition period proved to be a time of continued uncertainty and political wrangling. The UK and the EU struggled to agree on a trade deal that would govern their future economic relationship. The issue of the Irish border proved to be particularly contentious. The UK government was determined to avoid a hard border between Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK, and the Republic of Ireland, which remains an EU member state. However, the EU insisted that some form of border control would be necessary to protect the integrity of the single market. As the end of the transition period approached, the pressure mounted on both sides to reach an agreement. A no-deal Brexit, which would have seen the UK crash out of the EU without any trade deal in place, was a real possibility. This would have had severe consequences for the UK economy, disrupting trade, investment and supply chains. The economic impact, trade, business and uncertainty. The economic impact of Brexit has been a subject of intense debate. The UK government argues that Brexit has allowed the country to forge new trade deals and to pursue a more independent economic policy. However, many economists and businesses argue that Brexit has had a negative impact on the UK economy, leading to reduced trade, investment and growth. One of the most significant impacts of Brexit has been on trade. The UK is now outside the EU's single market and customs union, which means that there are new barriers to trade between the UK and the EU. These barriers include customs checks, tariffs, and regulatory divergence. Businesses have had to navigate these new rules and regulations, which has added to their costs and created uncertainty. The UK's departure from the EU has also disrupted supply chains, as businesses have had to find new suppliers and customers. The impact of Brexit on investment has also been negative. The uncertainty surrounding the UK's future relationship with the EU has made businesses more reluctant to invest in the UK. This has led to a decline in foreign direct investment, which has hurt economic growth. The UK's departure from the EU has also made it more difficult for UK businesses to attract and retain talent, as EU citizens are no longer able to work freely in the UK. Section 5. Case Studies. Businesses navigate the post-Brexit landscape. The impact of Brexit on businesses has been mixed. Some businesses have benefited from the weaker pound, which has made UK exports more competitive. Others have been able to adapt to the new trading arrangements and have even found new opportunities in the post-Brexit world. However, many businesses have struggled to cope with the increased costs, bureaucracy and uncertainty associated with Brexit. One example of a business that has been negatively impacted by Brexit is Wax Wicked Plants, a small business in England that specialises in growing and selling carnivorous plants. The business owner, Peter Walkden, has seen his exports to the EU plummet since Brexit. This is because he now has to comply with new phytosanitary regulations, which require him to obtain a phytosanitary certificate for every plant he exports. These certificates are expensive and time-consuming to obtain, and they have made it much more difficult for Peter to sell his plants to customers in the EU. Another example is Amber Violins, a small business in Scotland that buys and sells antique violins. The business owner, Sean Bishop, has been hit hard by new VAT rules that were introduced after Brexit. These rules make it more expensive for Sean to import violins from the EU, as he now has to pay VAT on the full value of the violin, even if it is only being imported temporarily for repair or restoration. This has made it more difficult for Sean to compete with businesses in the EU, and it has also made it more expensive for UK customers to buy antique violins. Section 6. Public opinion, shifting views on Brexit's legacy. Public opinion on Brexit has shifted significantly since the referendum in 2016. In the immediate aftermath of the vote, there was a sense of shock and division. However, as the reality of Brexit has set in, public opinion has become more negative. A poll conducted in January 2025 found that 55% of Britons believed that leaving the EU was a mistake. This represents a significant increase from the 48% who voted to remain in the EU in the 2016 referendum. Only 30% of Britons now believe that leaving the EU was the right decision. The poll also found that a majority of Britons, 63%, believe that Brexit has made the UK worse off economically. The shifting public opinion on Brexit is likely due to a number of factors. The economic impact of Brexit has been more negative than many people expected. The COVID-19 pandemic has also had a significant impact on the UK economy, and it is likely that some people blame Brexit for exacerbating the economic downturn. Additionally, the political turmoil surrounding Brexit, including the resignation of Theresa May and the subsequent leadership contest, has damaged public trust in the government and its handling of Brexit. Section 7. Political responses parties grapple with Brexit's aftermath. The political landscape in the UK has been transformed by Brexit. The Conservative Party, which has been in power since 2010, has been deeply divided over Europe for decades. The decision to hold a referendum on EU membership was seen as a way of healing these divisions. However, the referendum result only served to exacerbate them. The Conservative Party is now split between those who support a hard Brexit and those who favour a softer approach. This division has made it difficult for the government to negotiate a coherent Brexit strategy. The Labour Party, which is the main opposition party in the UK, has also struggled to articulate a clear position on Brexit. The party's leader, Keir Starmer, has ruled out rejoining the EU, but he has also criticised the government's handling of Brexit. Labour's ambiguous stance on Brexit has alienated both Remainers and Leavers, and it is unclear what the party's long-term strategy on Europe will be. The Liberal Democrats, who are a smaller centrist party, have been the most consistent opponents of Brexit. The party has campaigned for a second referendum on EU membership, and it has pledged to revoke Article 50 if it comes to power. The Liberal Democrats have benefited from the growing public disillusionment with Brexit, and they are now seen as the main party of Remain. Section 8. The road ahead: ongoing debates and future UK-EU relations. 8 years after the Brexit referendum, the UK is still grappling with the consequences of its decision to leave the EU. The economic impact of Brexit is still being felt, and the UK's future relationship with the EU remains uncertain. The political landscape in the UK has been transformed by Brexit, and the country is more divided than ever. The UK and the EU are now in a new phase of their relationship. The two sides have agreed to a trade and cooperation agreement which sets out the terms of their future economic relationship. However, the agreement is limited in scope, and it does not address many of the issues that were important to businesses and citizens, such as the free movement of people. The UK and the EU are also committed to cooperating on a range of other issues, including security, defence, and foreign policy. However, the relationship between the two sides remains strained, and there is a lack of trust. The future of the UK's relationship with the EU is uncertain. The UK government has ruled out rejoining the EU, but it is possible that the UK will seek to rejoin the single market or the customs union at some point in the future. Public opinion on Brexit is likely to continue to evolve, and it is possible that there will be growing support for closer ties with the EU in the years to come. Section 9. A lasting impact: Brexit's place in history. Brexit will undoubtedly be seen as a pivotal moment in British history. It marks the end of the UK's membership of the European Union, a project that the country played a key role in shaping. It also reflects a broader trend of rising nationalism and populism in Europe and beyond. The full consequences of Brexit are still unknown. The UK's economy, politics and society are all likely to be shaped by Brexit for many years to come. Only time will tell whether Brexit will be seen as a success or a failure. However, one thing is certain: Brexit has changed the UK forever.